Good morning, children. Today we will move on to the last session of the chapter Time and Motion. So, last class we studied about speed and also average speed. So, then what is speed? Average speed. You did the problem. I hope all of you have done it. So, next we will move on to another concept that is known as instantaneous speed. Instantaneous speed. What do you mean by instantaneous speed? From the word itself, it is the speed at an instant. So the speed of an object at a particular instant is known as instantaneous speed. And next one, what you have to study is speedometer. Speedometer. Speedometer is a device that is used in a vehicle to find the instantaneous speed of that vehicle. That is the speed of the vehicle at the moment. At that moment of moving is known as a speedometer. Speedometer is a device that is used to find the instantaneous speed or the speed of at the moment of which the vehicle is moving. So speedometer is used to find out the instantaneous speed of a vehicle. And the last one is odometer. Odometer is an instrument that is used to measure, or it is used to find the distance traveled by the vehicle. So the speedometer and odometer you might have found out in your vehicles. It is given on the front portion of the vehicle. Speedometer is used to find out the instantaneous speed and odometer is used to find the distance traveled by the vehicle. So next we will move on to uniform motion and non-uniform motion. Next we will move on to uniform motion and non-uniform motion. So to understand uniform motion and non-uniform motion, I have drawn a simple figure here. See a person, first one, a person is moving or a person is traveling from A to D. And the distance traveled is marked here and also the time taken is also given. See, for your convenience, I have drawn a figure here. See, this man is moving from A to D. And while examining this figure, you can find out, see here, during the first 2 seconds, the distance traveled by the person is 5 meters. That is, the person started from 0 meter and after 2 seconds he reached 5 meters. So the distance traveled is 5 meters. So in again the next 2 seconds he traveled. That is, he started again from 5 meters. He reached 10 meters. So what's the distance traveled there? The distance traveled is 5 meters. So in the next 2 seconds also the distance traveled is 5 meters. Then we will move on to C to D. C to D also he took 2 seconds and the distance traveled is 5 meters. So when you verify this, and in each time interval, that is during every 2 seconds, what is the distance traveled? The distance traveled is 5 meters. So during the first 2 seconds, the distance traveled is 5 meters. Then during the next 2 seconds also the distance traveled is 5 meters. Next 2 seconds the distance traveled is 5 meters. So such a motion in which the distance traveled in equal intervals of time are equal is known as a uniform motion. Or how will you define uniform motion? Uniform motion is that type of motion in which the distance traveled in equal intervals of time are equal. In equal intervals. See here the interval of time is 2 seconds and during each 2 seconds the distance traveled is 5 meters. So if a body covers equal distances in equal intervals of time, then that motion is said to be uniform motion. Then what is non-uniform motion? The next figure. See here also the person is traveling from A to B. During the first 2 seconds, what is the distance traveled? He started at 0 meter and after 2 seconds he reached 5 meter. So during the first 2 seconds, the distance traveled is 5 meter. Then next 2 seconds, B it is 5 meter and C it is 15 meter. So during the next 2 seconds, what is the distance traveled? The distance traveled is 10 meter. Then C to D. C it is 15 meter and D it is 30 meter. So what's the distance traveled there? The distance traveled is 15 meter. So while you examine this figure, during the first 2 seconds, the distance traveled is 5 meter. During the next 2 seconds, the distance traveled is 10 meter. And during the next 2 seconds, the distance traveled is 15 meter. So the time interval is equal, but is the distance traveled the same? No, the distance traveled goes on changing, isn't it? So such a motion in which in equal intervals of time, unequal distances are covered. Such a motion is known as non-uniform motion. Or non-uniform motion means if a body travels unequal distances in equal intervals of time, then that type of motion is known as non-uniform motion. I think from this figure it is clear for you uniform motion and non-uniform motion. Uniform motion, non-uniform motion, the best example is a ball falling from a height downwards. In equal intervals of time, the distance traveled by the ball will be unequal. It is an example of non-uniform motion. So from this we come to the end of the chapter. Next, what is given in the chapter is a graph, but the graph is not meant for studying now. You will have to study the graph in detail in higher classes. That is the next year. And in 8th standard and 9th standard, we have to study graph in detail. So we will cut short the lesson from this portion. So we come to the end of this portion, uniform motion and non-uniform motion. Rest of the lesson is not needed. Now, today I will give you the notes also. So I hope all of you have understood the lesson. Thank you.